Good morning. Welcome to Data Talks Live with Dr. Tom. I'm here today to talk about three timely articles covering data, governance, and the power of tensions of information and give you my take. I'm a professor of analytics and data science, as well as the head of an MBA program at a university, and have almost 20 years of industry leadership experience. So here's what we'll cover. An article, WhiteBridge AI, Your Personal Data is for Sale to You and Anyone, How a Controversial AI Firm Monetizes Reputation Reports and the Legal Issues it Raises. Another on How a Government Shutdown Could Impact the Jobs Report by Axios. This is the risk of a U.S. federal shutdown and what it poses for key economic data that markets rely on. And a BBC article about the department store Harrods, which says customers' data has been stolen in a major IT breach, which is all too common nowadays. So I'll connect the dots, how power, trust, legitimacy, and norms intersect in all of this. So we'll talk about the reputation report business from WhiteBridge AI first. The NOYB article reports on a Lithuanian company, WhiteBridge AI, which sells reputation reports on virtually anyone with an online presence. These reports compile a wide range of personal data, social media posts, images, inferred traits, hidden profiles, and alleged negative content, some based on scraped data, some inferred or even AI generated. The company markets these reports to the very individuals about whom they're compiled using headlines like, "This is kind of scary." In effect, it sells your own digital dossier back to you. Critically, many aspects of the reports are false or misleading. For example, allegations of adult content, political extremism, or personality traits that are not grounded in data. The company also provides interaction guidelines, do's and don'ts, and suggestions for how to manage the reputation of the person in question. NOYB, a privacy advocacy group, has filed a formal complaint under the EU's GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. They argue that WhiteBridge is violating multiple GDPR provisions. For example, Article 15, right of access, because individuals should be able to obtain a free copy of their personal data, but WhiteBridge charges for the report, as well as Article 5, data processing principles, Article 9, sensitive data, and Articles 12 and 16, which are transparency, rectification, among others. WhiteBridge defends itself in its privacy notice by appealing to freedom to conduct a business. The article argues does not override legal constraints. The article also notes that WhiteBridge processes data that arguably goes beyond what can be considered publicly available. Under GDPR jurisprudence, for example, scraping from social network pages not indexed by search engines. The article cites relevant Court of Justice of the European Union, CJEU case C-252. Posting on a social network is not necessarily manifestly public. Because of these issues, NOYB demands that the authorities order rectification, cease illegal processing, and impose penalties. So from my perspective as a professor, a few strands stand out. The self-alarm business model is unethical. It trades on fear and anxiety. The company compiles a dossier, some of it inaccurate, and then charges the person to see what's been said about them. That inverts consumer protections. It's akin to a scam disguised as transparency. It's also false inference and algorithmic overreach, which are central here. The report blurs the line between scraped fact and AI inference. As scholars of algorithmic justice or ethics know, these blended inferences are difficult to challenge, especially when the subject is not told how the inference was made. Legal norms lag behind the new business models. The GDPR is powerful, but enforcement is low. This complaint by NOYB is necessary but reactive. It illustrates a constant dilemma. Law codifies principles, but business innovations often outpace legal adaptation, which is certainly true in the U.S., where we don't have anything comparable to GDPR, except in California, where we're starting to catch up. Okay, so who gets to say what your personality traits are? Who is the authority in that zone? These reputation reports attempt to assume epistemological authority over you, but without accountability or transparency. As an academic, I think of parallels to peer review, Reputation claims require legitimacy and the ability to critique. And if such firms are allowed to proliferate, the boundary between researcher, data broker, be right there, reputation manager, and surveillance actor become murky. We must ensure that the data we rely on, teach about, or critique isn't co-opted in opaque reputation markets. The Axios piece, Government Shutdown and its Threat to Economic Data, describes how a looming U.S. federal government shutdown could disrupt the release of key economic data, especially the September jobs report and later the October Consumer Price Index. These metrics are foundational to how Wall Street, economic forecasters, and policymakers make decisions. The Bureau of Labor Statistics compiles the payroll survey by the end of Tuesday and processes it on Wednesday, the same day a shutdown may begin. Experts, including former BLS Commissioner Erica Grosjean, suggest the jobs report might still be released on Friday, but it's uncertain. If the shutdown persists, CPI data, which requires continuous data collection over the month, could be delayed. The inflation numbers from BLS feed directly into the Social Security adjustments, so delayed or incomplete data have caused cascading effects. The article notes that during a shutdown, markets lose the empirical anchor they typically use to anticipate rate decisions by the Federal Reserve or to assess economic momentum. Without fresh data, financial anchors may default to narrative or political cues instead of measurable evidence. The article also mentions that the White House is reportedly planning mass firing across federal agencies during the shutdown, which could amplify economic impacts. This article, while brief, underscores a deep issue: the fragility of institutional infrastructure and its importance for epistemologic foundations in society. Data is the infrastructure. We often treat data as passive feedstocks, but in reality, data collection, validation, and dissemination are active, laborious institutional processes that require continuity, resourcing, and legitimacy. And a shutdown threatens that. Knowledge vacuums and narrative drift. When empirical data is unavailable or delayed, decision makers and the public often turn to anecdotes or narrative. This amplifies the risk of misinformation, bias, or politicized interpretation. In academia, we often fight to replace narrative with evidence. Here, the bottleneck shifts. In fields like economics or public policy, timing is everything. A delayed CPI or jobs report might misalign policy cycles, Federal Reserve decisions, budgetary cycles, or political cover. Delays amplify uncertainty, which has real costs, not just intellectual, but financial and social. Markets, governments, media, academia all rely on a common pool of trusted data. If that common ground is compromised, the coherency of disclosure phrased, it may be harder to find benchmarks or contextualized research. Institutions should ask, what are the fallback plans when core data pipelines break? Are there archival sources, alternative proxies, or real-time high-frequency indicators, such as job posting data, private sector surveys that can substitute, particularly while waiting for an official data release? Overall, I think the Axios article is a sober reminder. Knowledge production isn't immune to political dysfunction, and the foundations of what we know depend on stable systems. The last one I want to talk about is the BBC article, Data Access Information Control. There was essentially a data breach at the Harrods luxury department store. This article is by Adam Hale. So luxury department store Harrods has warned its customers their personal data may have been taken in an IT systems breach. It said information like names and contact details of some online customers was taken from the system of a third-party provider. Harrods described the breach in an email sent to customers Friday evening as an isolated incident. So I think this is a broader issue that we need to discuss. There's an increasing frequency of data breaches happening across all platforms in general. A lot of them are by state actors, but some of them are by individual groups who are looking to make money and gain access to your personal information. So I think the core to this question is, what are some things we can do to protect ourselves from data breaches? I know it's been said many times, but use strong, unique passwords everywhere. Don't reuse passwords across sites, and use a password manager. Enable multi-factor authentication. Keep your softwares up to date. Many breaches exploit unpatched systems. Make sure you enable auto updates for your operating system, browser, major apps. Delete software you don't use. If you have fewer apps, you have fewer vulnerabilities. And be careful what you share online. The less data you expose publicly, the less it can be scraped or sold. Avoid posting personal identifiers, birth dates, addresses, travel schedules. Check your privacy settings on social media. Every few months, the defaults often change. Monitor your credit. In the US, you can place a freeze on your credit file with Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, which can prevent anyone from opening new credit lines in your name without your permission. And you might also consider a credit monitoring service or identity theft insurance if you've already been exposed in a breach. Recognize phishing or social engineering. Never click links or download attachments from unexpected emails. If something looks urgent or scary, account suspended, verify now, slow down, and check directly with the service. This includes text messages too. This has gone beyond just emails. Breaches often start with you being tricked, not the system being hacked. So those are just a few things you can do to try to keep yourself safe. The first line of defense is personal strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, being careful with what we share, and using encryption where we can, but we can't stop there because no one can fully opt out of the data economy. The real change comes from collective action, pushing for privacy laws with teeth, building ethical norms around AI, and teaching ourselves and our students about digital literacy as a civic skill. All right, everyone, that's all I have for today. So thanks for joining. This has been Data Talks Live. I'm Dr. Tom, and I'll talk to you soon.